Thank you, Daniela.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kayla Gomez, and I'm a program coordinator with Ventures. Ventures is an organization that partners with rural Latino working class families in California's Central Coast to implement transformational programs that ensure a shared and prosperous economic future for all. Together, we're working toward a future where zip code, race, gender, or immigration status do not dictate income or wealth. And today's panel is co-hosted with Colmenar Cooperative. It is the last of our series of 3 where we discuss different kinds of worker cooperatives and hear from worker owners themselves about their experiences. If you missed our previous panels or want to go back and listen to them again, they're available on our YouTube, and I'll share the link in the chat. These talks are also a component of Futuro, which is a project that aims to create an income and wealth building vehicle for Salinas Valley working class Latinos while prioritizing women and immigrants. Thank you so much to our panelists for joining us today and for everyone else tuning in to learn more about cooperatives. I'll go ahead and pass it back to Daniela and Mayerlin.
Muchas gracias, Kayla. Bueno, mi nombre es Daniela Preisler.
Thank you. My name is Daniela Preisler. I am a co-founder of Colmenar Cooperative Consulting. My pronouns are she, her. And tonight we are co-hosting this session together with Mayerlin, my co-worker. Mayerlin, would you like to introduce yourself? Good afternoon, everyone. I am so happy and excited to be here. My name is Mayerlin Castillo. I'm the other co-founder of Colmenar. There are 3 of us. And I live in Auckland. I live in the US for about 20 years. And I work in consulting, social entrepreneurship, and cooperative development for workers, cooperative development. And once again, I'm so excited to be here with you and explore more about this topic. Thank you very much. Perfect. Thank you, Mayerlin. Well, so we can see here our agenda. We're going to talk about sustainability and the environment. We're going to have a panel forum, questions and answers at the end so that you can take your notes and make your questions. It is a good opportunity to connect with members of cooperatives that are doing this important work and that can tell us about their valuable experience. What are the requirements? What are the challenges? So make sure to take notes. And then we're going to close. But this is the last of these community talks, this trilogy. And as Kayla said, you can access the previous talks in our YouTube channel. So as before, we have given a little bit of context on workers' cooperatives in general, just a general overview. And during the first session, we spoke of the types of cooperatives that exist. During the second session, we talked about integrating or incorporating a cooperative. And today we're going to talk about values and principles, which is the basis for this business model. So cooperative values and these principles were established through the International Alliance for Cooperatives, and these are the engine, we could say, that establish certain principles that guide this business model. So the values that we have for cooperative are respect, commitment, trust, honesty, equality and equity, and mutual assistance. So these are the 6 main principles, which are the basis and the engine, what help us to get up in the morning because we're in a safe place. We are among colleagues, and we all have the same purpose of working together. We are rowing towards the same destination. There's a commitment with them and with myself, and there's a trust, which is such an important element, and mutual assistance, honesty, equity. These are are guidelines that allow us to strengthen this business model. This is also the engine of cooperative principles, which are 7. The first is free and voluntary access. So anyone can access without any discrimination, as long as they want to assume the responsibilities and duties in this type of business. We are owners for, and also workers, and this entails responsibilities. The second is democratic management. The most important decisions are made democratically and require the active participation of all partners, all members. There's not one voice that speaks louder than others, so that has greater weight than others. So this also requires a certain responsibility. When we have a voice, we have the responsibility to own my voice. The third ones are economic and participation, where all members have to contribute equality, and they have the freedom to choose the management. For loss and profits, this is another particularity of independent. If we have a frequency of payment called in this model, it's not called salaries of wages, but these are guarantees payments that are paid in a frequent manner. It is going to be established in the way that it is growing, then we're going to have a greater stability as well. Sometimes when the cooperative is created, it has a certain stability, but as in every business, the first years is about growing. And also we have profits and loss distribution. This is not only the responsibility, but there's also a benefit. It's not only about working, it's about working together. Autonomy and independence. Members manage the business, the cooperative business, through agreements and mutual assistance. And we can highlight the management. We do not have bosses, but we manage it ourselves. Through active participation, we assume the responsibility both individually and collective participation. Then we have education, training, and information. This is a continuous effort. It is key and essential for growing our business that we uh, give the importance to our professional training for all members. Also, when we start, this is unbalanced. It is important to acknowledge and find the support and consultancy needed in order to advance. Also among members, just to share and exchange knowledge. 6 is cooperation among cooperatives. This is the 6th principle. This is very nice because we help each other grow and make the ecosystem grow at a national, regional, and international level. For example, today we're participating in this panel. We have colleagues that are going to share their experience. We are cooperating among cooperatives, and those who are interested in integrating a cooperative could have access. And it is important to listen to each other. And finally, concern for the community. The cooperative work for the sustainable development of communities through policies accepted by their members, but also looking at the community. How can we contribute to the community? So based on this, I'm going to give the floor to Mayerlin. I hope that you're going to be getting this presentation, so you have all these principles. And now I'm going to give the floor to Mayerlin Castillo to continue with the next topic. Thank you, Daniela. So, as Anela mentioned, of these principles and the importance of sustainability in our communities and our planet, and we think about this, we also think that we need, a lot of training, a lot of new knowledge. However, historically speaking, our communities have been practicing sustainability practices that may be observed in many indigenous communities in Mexico, in Central America, in South America. And this entails a cosmovision around an economical activity that considers all the elements necessary for developing communities, benefiting the well-being of its members in balance with the planet. And here we want to share with you this image that you see is the flower of that represents the community, this concept of cosmovision of the community, and refers to this way of life that our communities have practiced since our ancestors. And as you can see, in th- the heart is where the resources that brings energies to the economies, to the communities. For example, agriculture, and for example, in Mexico, corn has been this core, and the on around this corn, we celebrate traditions. We have many celebrations. We care for the territory and policies. Through the assembly, we make decisions that are important, and in some cases, some of these sessions may take even weeks. However, the idea is to listen to all voices and support the sustainability of the community. And as you can see, the flower, you consider different elements that are not only those of political power and territory, but also where we harvest our identity, our education, our language, and through these concepts and elements, it is that we develop a community that grows in equilibrium, in balance with our environment, with our animals, with our planet. Unfortunately, on the other end, we operate under a predominant system, which is capitalism, that focuses its activities and production activities for profit that have practices that are exploitative, extra extra that destroys our countries and our planets. And who is getting benefited by this, and who is getting affected by this for due to pollution of water, of the earth? This is not good for a health way of life. We're destroying the local economies, and in this way it is very difficult to develop an economy that will support communities in in the most vulnerable positions. However, on the other end, fortunately, we have the opportunity today to participate in another way of life, in an economy that, in the same way as indigenous communities, seeks to cover the needs through activities that strengthen social values, ecological sustainability, cooperation, mutualism, as Daniela mentioned, and democracy. And this is where we connect the dots with cooperatives, because as we have seen, it is a model, it is a economic model of solidarity that wants to provide solutions, innovative solutions to social issues such as access to healthy food, such as the fight against poverty, social exclusion, support to the ill, climate change, among others. And today we have two panel members that are going to be talking to us about their collective projects and how their are taking this step forward to support our communities in the face of climate change and access to electricity. So I would like to give the floor to Daniela, who's going to introduce our special guests and speakers for tonight. Thank you, Merly. Yes, so we want to welcome our panel members. We're really excited to have their participation with this will based on Principle 6. And I would like to introduce Flecker Vera. He's a community organizer. He's been working in this for a long time. Flecker has a degree in finances that has helped him to create worker-owned companies, and he's part of Sustain Energy, which is a worker-owned company in the industry of energy efficiency and installation of solar panels. He's also co-founder of other entities, and he's working in different initiatives. Welcome, Flecker. And I would like to also welcome our other panel member, Mr. Tony Pineda. He is from Venezuela. He got here in 2005. He started working in a car wash until 2016. Then he went to a center of agriculture for workers and farmers, and he started this beautiful project of cooperative, and he's the member of one, and we want to highlight this is Tucson Rainwater Harvesting Co-op, and we want to highlight that this is a very committed man with social justice because his parents got him involved in the concept of we are all human beings, we all deserve the same opportunities. We all agree with that. Welcome, Antonio. So I would like to ask Kayla. I will stop sharing my screen.
Ok. Entonces,
Okay.
a ver si nos podemos hacer el ping, que digo yo, ¿no?
So let's see if we can.
Bueno, queremos partir, ¿no?
We want to start by welcoming you, of course, and we would like to start talking about how did the cooperative start? What's the name of the co-op? How many members does it have? What was the year of incorporation? And what was where did you start with this interest, and what was your idea behind starting a cooperative? Hi, Daniela, and everyone for having me here. It is a pleasure to be part of this forum today. I am Flecker. I work in ecological production. I live in Cincinnati. Sustainable is a cooperative model that is based on the model of Mondragon. We have been in business for 10 years. We work with unions and with the greatest network cooperatives in Cincinnati. We are about 14, 15 cooperatives. Each co-op works with unions. We are with the steelworkers unions. And our market is mainly in Cincinnati. We work in energy efficiency. Our workers earn from 40,000 to 60,000 per year. We work in attics. We see energy efficiency, how to reduce electricity costs by using, for example, recycled goods. And we try to reduce the cost of the household. And then we install solar panels. When reducing the cost of energy, it costs about $1,200 to $1,500 in utilities bill. And so the cost is reducing 15, 20%. And then we install solar panels that are then smaller because then you have, so we have about 10 to 15 workers. We are 5 owners. 4 are first generation of migrants, and we have one that came here from Appalachia in the rural areas of Kentucky. We have we have served about 150 houses, and we have free about 1,000,000 pounds of paper for installing this, among other processes. And this is our model started in 2008, where obviously we all lost a lot of money due to the financial crisis, and they took our taxes to help and free the banks, right? And that's when we created, we learned that in Mondragon, the in 2010, we decided to create a cooperative in Cincinnati. We are a network of union cooperatives under the model of Mondragon. And this is what we do. Our purpose is to create jobs and employment that can sustain the families. Thank you very much for sharing. I'm going to make some questions. What is Mondragon? That will be my first question. Oh, I apologize. I didn't clarify. Don't worry, we'll clarify later. Tony, as we call you with a lot of love, Antonio. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Antonio Pineda. I am a member of a co-op at Tucson Ray Farm Harvesting, as you mentioned. All of this started at a farmer center where I assisted to look for jobs, where employers go to find workers. And once we were waiting for employers, and we have a meeting, and the ones in charge of the center asked us whether somebody wanted to have their own business. So imagine we were all migrants, and of course, we wanted to have ideas to do something, but not all off the cuff. So, and we started to wonder, how can we do this? And they say we're going to have a visit of two members of a federation of cooperatives. And under that model, the business is going to be created. And this is a model that can be suitable for you. So we were all curious about it. They came in 2000, at the end of 2017. They came to Tucson. And when people like that come, you know that all organizations come together, and they bring their members, 3, 4, 5 members per organization. And they have the facility, they have all very well planned. When they came here, they organized 2 training workshops, one of 4 hours and the other of 8 hours. And imagine, in 4 and 8 hours, they gave us so much information about cooperatives, and that was amazing. We didn't lack for any information, but we were so overwhelmed by the amount of information, so much in one day. The first 4 hours was some sort of an introduction to how you can start a co-op, what are the principles, the values, the requirements. And if you notice, the 7 principles that Daniela mentioned are based. Cooperatives are based in principles and values, and these are about equality and equity. If you notice, most cooperatives have the same opportunities. Nobody is above anybody. And so this was a way for us, and we said this is what we need. Well, I want to highlight this. In a worker center, when you go looking for a job, and if that day you didn't find a job, you remain there, and you start talking to other persons, and you start making friendships, and everyone starts sharing their experiences of everything that they have been gone through. And we talk about the different jobs that we had. And so I realized that many of us had a common reason of why we lost our jobs. And if you remember, in 2010, there was an act enacted against migrant workers, people who didn't have documentation. It was called SV 10 said. This impacted a lot at the national level. A lot of people lost their job during that year and could never work again in a company. For example, so where I work. So that was a unemployment era that nobody say anything. We wanted to repeal that law, if you remember. So where I work, I had a position that was not so relevant, but I will provide maintenance to the company machine. That's why they didn't fire me and they didn't ask me to do an additional application, because when this law was enacted, they said, uh, we- so that this is why, and this is where a lot of people lost their job. Some others have found a job because they work a lot for little pay, and overtime was not paid to them, and because the company knew that they were undocumented, that's how they took advantage of that. And for example, when I lost my job, I lost it because employee the employer decided that car wash was not will not give him profit. We were 100 workers. He had about 10 car wash, and he just changed his area of business without considering all of the workers that will sustain their families from that. He gave us a month's notice and he said, just go look for a job somewhere else. So these were such terrible situations. And that's how I got to this worker center. And I met these persons that had the idea of co-ops. And I said to everyone, we have to learn this. We were about eight that started this initiative. We went to the workshop. They talked to us about governance, structural, or organizational structure, meetings, conflict resolution, and transparency, which was essential because most of the time the Latin community, is untrusting among ourselves. And we also learn about, and I have that, they send us this information, operating agreement for cooperatives. These sheets that you see here, 5, 6, this summarizes everything that they taught us in that workshop, but it is a little bit shallow as a document. So they gave us this as an example, as a sample. When we took this sample is when we started holding meeting. They left and they never came back. We never heard about them anymore. They told us what you have to do now is to incorporate the cooperative, and you have a grant of $10,000 to start it. And this is where everything started. We started uh, cap- building capacity. And when you build capacity, this learning makes you change perspective, change your attitude, change completely, and you are a renewed person. I love that, Tony. I love what you're saying. I love this path. Imagine during a crisis moment is the point of birth of this cooperative. When we are in most need is what we do need to apply this principle of uh, of cooperation among cooperatives. I want to ask Flecker, how did you choose to do the work that you do? And how do you think this impacts sustainability of the environment in the community? As Daniela mentioned at the beginning, I am a community leader. I still work in criminal justice reform. I'm a, and migrant rights. And I have this passion. I also like business. I study finances, and there's a big gap between both finances and social justice. I was not happy, and I learned in Montenegro, in Spain, where there is the the biggest cooperative, about 18,000 workers. They they have many businesses, and I understood the way they could mix this part of profitability, learning, and community social justice. And this is a work that will feed the passions that I had. So I chose sustainability because in Peru, Our friends from Chile know this maybe. The phenomena of El Nino starts in the coast of Peru and Chile and affects the climate around the world. And in Peru, we have had three Niños, one after the other, and this generates changes in temperatures that are very extreme. And people are not prepared for this. Thousands of people die. Also, the cattle dies. So Peru suffers a lot from climate change. And I was growing. This is the we will preserve water. I would see that the tap of the neighbor was open, and we close it, and we will work. I will, turn off the lights if it was not necessary to have them on. And when I got here, it was all the opposite. And I always had that passion for energy and water efficiency as the friend Tony. And so I had the opportunity to be in Sustainability. We could create employment opportunities, work, pay the workers. This is the future to have clean energy. And we saw this opportunity and we started this 10 years ago. And that's how we started in this, within this context. Our purpose was always to create employment opportunities that could uh, provide means for sustainment of families. And the second was climate change. And the third was that we want to be a solution to a problem. We didn't want to be a business that will provide profits that I don't want to offend anyone, but we wanted to have a business that will be part of the solution on climate change. And that's how we started. And that's why are in sustainability. Thank you very much. I think it is so incredible on how our life experiences shape the path that we walked along and where we focus our efforts and how we help each other. I could I would like to add, and this is part of my experience. I was undocumented for 7 years, and it shaped me a lot. It was a harsh experience in my life, but it shaped me in inclusivity, in social justice, because now that I went through that, I work in sustainability. This is a job that I love, but that experience has helped me have more empathy towards other communities, not only migrants, but the LGBTIQ community, the African American community, among others. It impacted me greatly. Thank you. I love this to hear about this. And I wanted to ask to our participants today if they have any questions or remarks for our panelists. Please write them down. We want to know about your curiosity. How can we learn more? How can we know more about cooperatives with support to the environment and to the communities? Tony, you told us about what your cooperative does. I love the way you explained it. I wanted to ask you if you could explain also to our participants, what's your work about? How do you help communities?
Está silenciado, Tony.
You're muted.
Ahí. Ahora sí. ¿No?
There you go.
Ahí. Ahí.
Nuestro trabajo es
Our
capturar
work is to capture rainwater or harvest rainwater. And we decided on this because we thought we are in a demographical area where the heat is unbearable and the water is a vital and precious liquid, and it's very expensive as well. So the area where I live is south side, and this is like the slogan of this town is a village within a city because it is a very old-fashioned sort of village. They have their own laws and regulations. This area has their own laws and regulation outside of the laws and regulations of the city, of the county. So we decided on water because we realized that there was lack of water. First of all, because the pipelines were old. So there was a need to renew the pipelines. So we will go house by house And sometimes they will take a block of 6 to 7 houses, and they will, just break the pipelines, and they will bring cistern tanks to provide water to the neighborhoods because they will cut the water service. So people stop harvesting, and we didn't see any more trees and flowers. The spring will arrive, and everyone was so jealous of water. And when we discussed, we wanted to find business areas that will cover the needs of our community, but at the same time, that will provide a benefit to the community, not only to bring them the service, not only to benefit us, but to benefit them. We wanted it mutualism. So what better than harvesting rainwater, a system that does not depend on any energy to start. This is this works on its own due to gravity, and you can do it on your own. You just have to have it in a high point of your house so that you can, distribute it in your house to, you know, you can use it in your driveway, in your kitchen, in your house, for your garden. So when we decided on this area, we realized that people agreed greatly with this. And one of our first idea was our community, our neighborhood is going to be the first, because I read that whenever cooperatives were incorporated, all social economic benefits will remain within its own community. So we started our operating agreement. We established that we will transfer the acquisitive power. So when we work with people in the north, we have one price. But when we work in our sector, we do not collect taxes, we do not uh, collect the cost of materials, and this is a 10%. We do not add this 10%. We gave them this purchasing power, sort of say. And our goal was to have this area completely filled with rainwater harvesting collection tanks of a minimum 1,000 gallons. We have 35. We've been working for 3 years barely. And this is one of the reasons why we decided to harvest rainwater. And with, it helps, we help with shortages, because then people will not spend so much money on water. Rainwater is one of the healthiest tests of water. For the plants is the best. There is even one neighbor that processes the water and has drinkable water. But this, of course, requires additional studies, engineering studies. And, we're going step by step. We want to connect to help the most remote communities. For example, Tucson Water, which is the company that supplies water for the village, they reach to a certain distance of the population. But, constructors are building houses outside of this house, outside of these areas. So Tucson Water cannot supply water to these houses. So what they do is that they then do water wells that they say that are going to last for 50 years. And, but, and we have water from the river Mead, and can you imagine the cost? And they are trying to fill in these wells again, and that's how we have churches. That's why the river Mead is decreasing. It's not a river, it is a dam that was made by men. So we want to raise awareness to people that water is essential in this area of the country. Imagine, how can we survive without water? We are nothing without water. We cannot feed ourselves. How can we sustain agriculture? So it is great work that you do. Annabelle comments, Antonio, you do something great. Congratulations. Also, we have some questions. Okay, we're gonna ask first us, and then we're gonna read the chat questions, okay? So I would like to excellent, really what you're doing, both of you. I think about it and I think about isolated areas, how much isolation and how much isolation can reduce costs for a household. I have been called several times to tell me that there's an option for solar panels, but sometimes this is not an option. Sometimes you're in between because you're not low income, but you're also not the other way. So you're there somewhere in the middle. But I understand that this is an investment that you recover, right? It has a return. So people who has the capacity to do it is so important to start, uh, you know, addressing this cost of energy. I would also like to think or consider the way forward, the next steps. What do you think on how we can support cooperatives? Meaning, what are the requirements when you want to start a cooperative? What do we need to advance in this process? And I will start by Fleck. What are these challenges that you need to overcome? The main challenge is to get members, people who have the values and share the values. If they don't have the technical part, it doesn't matter. I didn't know either. I learned about it. I was passionate about it and I learned it. But we want committed members. And this is for cooperatives and any type of business. And then I think it is quite important to have grants for capacity building, to have this type of virtual talks in order to share this knowledge that people know that there's an opportunity. There are many models and there are co-op models that are more efficient, that are stronger. We always talk about cooperatives, about requirements, but these are more resilient and these are stronger during recession. Another challenges that we have in sustainable is that because we're a small business, we have limited capacity sometimes. We have tried to expand to Dayton, which is 30 miles from here, and our purpose is to create a franchise. And we have tried many times, but we don't have the bandwidth or the capacity to expand. We are with the isolation, this has been quite difficult to expand. These are some of the challenges that we face. In the past, we had more challenges for, having capital for launching cooperatives, but now there are more opportunities. We have to always look for them, but there are more share capitals. Steve Commons, there are many, New England, among others. So there are ways to get the funds for the cooperative without having to, mortgage your house. So, uh, so, so with a trust system that you need to, the evidence that your cooperative has. And if I could add from the previous question about how do we support the workers, I forgot to answer this. And briefly, we believe that because we are cooperatives, our business is going to be more efficient than those who are not. And based on that, so we see what the concurrence pays and we try to pay above the concurrence. This allows us to do the right thing, to create a sustainable means of living for families, and to avoid getting our members to consider other types of work because it's a hard work. You work under the sun. It is we share the patronage with member workers. It is difficult to offer health insurance. the conquerors exploit their workers. This is an epidemic, if you think about it, especially for migrants that hire them as contractors, which they're not. And it is difficult to compete with this market in many ways and provide, 401k, health insurance. But some cooperatives in Cincinnati, we can do it, even if it's difficult, which shows that you can consider comparatives, but because it's an efficient models, your work produces more, the tools are, you know, less. And we also have financial trainings. It is difficult to change the mindset to being an owner worker and not just a worker. So you have to have, as commoner people do, have to have financial education to change this mindset. I will stop here. I could continue the whole hour, but I will leave the floor for Tony. Tony, would you like to add something? What were those challenges? And then we will give the floor to the questions that are appearing in the chat. We're going to try to answer all of them.
pues las barreras pues fueron
Well,
muchas,
some of the
todo,
challenges were many.
pero todo tiene su sacrificio.
Everything has a sacrifice.
Empecé
Everything
pero no
can
es
be done.
imposible.
It is
No,
difficult, but nothing
nosotros
is
empezamos pues
impossible.
ninguno tenía
When
los
we
papeles,
started,
apenas ya
we didn't have
yo digo
documents.
que soy ciudadano, pero apenas estoy en
I'm
permiso de
not a
trabajo.
citizen, but I
Después
have
de
a work
3 años de
permit
residencia aquí,
after so many
entonces por
years
eso
of
les estoy
living
contento.
here, and that keeps
Pero
me
una de las
really
primeras barreras
happy.
fue
One
el
of the
idioma,
first challenges
porque
was
para
the
legal, por
language,
ejemplo, para la parte legal,
because
cuando
to
nos tocaron
for the legal
ser
part,
lawyers, como dicen ustedes, a veces
as you said,
teníamos que hablar con abogados y
sometimes
no
we
nos
needed to
sabían
talk
nada
to
de
lawyers
cooperativas.
because they
Eso por
didn't
la
know
parte legal.
anything
Segundo,
about
teníamos que hablar
cooperatives. So this
con
legal
los
part was
contadores,
challenges.
porque de
Then
ellos
second,
tenían
we needed to
conocimiento
talk
de
to the
de cooperativas.
accountants because
Entonces
nobody
nosotros
had
teníamos
this
que
idea.
explicar que
We
eran
talk about
cooperativas y
cooperatives and
nosotros
they would
no,
think
no, que así son,
corporation
y
and
ahora
would say,
estamos
no,
hablando
no,
que
it's
no,
not a
que acá no hay
corporation.
una
We
corporación
know the difference
cercana
about
y que son
corporation and
independientes
cooperative
totales.
of,
Esa
we
es la parte
researched so
legal.
much about
Y
it.
entonces,
So,
pues, esas fueron dos
and
barreras muy
so these
difíciles que
were
tuvimos que
two
superar,
big
pero
barriers that we needed
gracias
to
a Dios, al
overcome. But
final,
thank
después de
God,
que
at the
éramos 5
end,
integrantes, entró
after
otro
being
integrante que
just
era
five
ciudadano
members,
residente
we
y con eso
had
pues
an
nos ayudó
additional member who
a,
was
por
a
ejemplo, pasar
resident
el examen
and
para la
help us
licencia, porque
to,
necesitábamos una licencia
present the
para poder
exam for the
registrar la
license
ciudad.
to
Entonces nos
register
preguntaban,
the
bueno, ¿y
cooperative in the
en qué
city. And they would
código debo
ask
hacer
us,
con la ciudad? ¿Qué es lo que hacen ustedes? No, que
in which
solicitamos el
code,
acta
what do
civil.
you do?
Pero
What
no
is,
aparecía, no aparecía
but
ningún
in
código específico
our
de eso.
job,
Entonces,
our work didn't appear in the barley.
bueno,
So
no
we'd
sirve de
say,
algo.
what do we
Eso
do? And one
está
of the members
conectado con
said, this is connected
el
to
landscaping y la irrigación. Pues sí,
landscape
podemos
and
podemos
irrigation
hacer eso,
systems.
aunque
And
no
so we can
sabemos,
say
pero lo
we do
podemos
same.
hacer.
Even if we don't do
Entonces
it, we
así
can do it.
hicimos y así
So
fue.
that's how we
Obtuvimos
got
la
it.
licencia
And
del
that's how
ciudad
we got
del condado.
our
Esa fue una licencia.
license of the
Y después,
county.
bueno, ya superando eso, pues seguimos
And
avanzando.
once we
Cuando
got
comenzamos, empezamos con la
over that,
aseguradora.
we
Entonces,
advanced,
pero
and then we
una
had the
opción y
insurance
otra, así.
companies, and they would tell
Entonces
me,
ya
give me the code,
empezamos
and
ya
everything
conseguimos la
started again.
aseguranza,
So
conseguimos la
once we got the
licencia,
insurance, we
conseguimos
got
el
the
abogado
license
ya
and
que
permits, we
uno de
got the
los que
lawyer,
fue uno de la
and one of
Universidad
the
Estatal de
lawyers
Arizona, se
studied in the
prestó,
University of
se,
Arizona,
ella se prestó para decir
and
que no entiendo nada
she
de eso, pero yo voy a estudiar.
said,
Y
I
empezó
don't
con
know
la
anything
práctica
about it,
en
but
New
I'm
York,
going to learn about it. And she
casi todos
started
los de la
connecting with people
federación
of
van
New
para la
York,
federación,
of
consiguieron la
other of
información
the
y
federation.
toda la
She
información
got the
estuvo legal y
information,
así fue que
and
empezó aquí y se
and
hizo
that's
el
how we
acuerdo
started.
protocolar bien
And we
detallado
had
para
an
que
operational agreement that's
y
really
por aquí
formal.
tengo
Let me just
lo
show
que tengo
you.
en inglés ahorita,
It is
pero
in
está
English, but
aprobado y dicho
it's
por la
been
ciudad y por
approved,
el estado porque
authorized by the city, by the
ya somos
state,
contratistas.
and
Ok,
now we are
este está
contractor
bastante
officially,
básico,
because in
requiere
this
tener
state, when
mínimo 3
you
años
want
de
to be a
experiencia
contractor, you have to have a
en
minimum
las
3
áreas
years
que tú trabajas.
experience in the
Entonces
area
ustedes
where
van a
you
ver lo
tend to
poco que
work.
nomás nos
And
dejan
this
hacer
was
trabajo
another thing. They will only let us do
$500,000, de ahí no pasamos.
500 to
Pero no pasamos porque como hemos ganado
$800,000
puestos en
work.
en el centro de
But we were
trabajadores, centro de
used to
beneficios.
earning
Entonces no nos, eso no nos gustaba a nosotros
150
mucho.
daily.
Entonces
So
nosotros veíamos que el capital de las cooperativas
so
es
we
un
understood that
capital social
the cooperative capital is not the capital that corporations have. It is about to work. It is not the same model. This is all equally distributed. And this is one of the things that we started to learn from cooperatives when we had everything. Then we took the next step of taxes, income taxes. And this was another challenge, another war, because accountants didn't understand. They didn't know whether they were doing things right and didn't want to risk their license. So they would tell us, I don't want to lose my license because of something I don't understand. So we started looking for help in other states, and the Federation helped us so much. I assisted some conference with you. I learned many things from other cooperatives that were already in operations. And I had a partnership that is something similar to cooperatives, but without profit. But if you want, you can do it. But this is a benefit that cannot be presented in the IRS tax form. And so the person that helped us with our migration documents told us, I have everything ready. So these are things that in our state are not that clear because it doesn't say cooperatives, but it says joint associations, which is basically the same, they would say. And until we got to overcome, and the most important things, there can be any type of barrier of challenge, but don't forget, things can be difficult, but not impossible. There's always a way, there's always um, a path. And you know, every time someone tells you there's a barrier, let's jump over it. As Neruda said, I'm gonna enact a law that we are going to smile in the face of problems.
Muchas gracias. No, Kelly.
Thank you very much, Tony. So beautiful. There are barriers, there are challenges. And being a business, there are always difficulties to face. But the beautiful thing about it is that you're not alone. You're hand in hand with your colleagues. We see a lot of questions in the chat. So we would like to give the space to the questions in the chat. I took note of the one of the first ones. How do you, Flecker talked about finance. He talked about Share Capital and Seed Commons, which are two organizations that are, which purpose is providing funds to cooperatives and offer support and counseling for this process. In the chat, CCD, which is the Center for Cooperative Development, and they are providing at this moment a grant to support development. If you want to have a new member, especially here in California, just so you know that there's this possibility. So Kathleen, I don't know whether this respond our question on how to get a starting capital. Another question is,
approach that animate you and your club members. ¿Podrías, por favor, compartir algunas de las características de Mondragón, de su estilo?
Could you please share some of the key features of the Mondragon approach that animate you and your club members? Yes, of course, and it is a great question. What motivates us is that this capitalist model, you know, this is just a chip in this big ocean. The Mondragon model, a very similar model, is to create in a cooperative within a cooperative. We are 15 cooperatives, 14, and we are in ecological construction. There's one for cleaning, there's one for recycling, there's one for bottling and packaging, and we all share an incubator that's called Cop City. We share knowledge, which hire bookkeeping accountant because we are 150. We can hire a bookkeeper for cooperatives and he will provide us with a discount. He has also provided training for continuous improvement, lean manufacturing and lean construction to make the business more efficient. We always provide 10% of our net under a fund. This fund is used for training, capacity building, for loans, not a giveaway, but just loan money to a cooperative that is maybe on, with an ongoing process. We will provide the funds to avoid their bankruptcy, but in a long manner. It's like an ecosystem. You help each other, right? That's great. This is a mutual assistance model. COP intercooperation. This is one of the principles. Yes, one of the cooperative principles. Next question is for Tony from Dana.
Tuscan, no sé, a lo mejor quiere decir Tucson, tal vez.
In Tucson,
Durante la
in
temporada, voy a
Tux,
leerlo en inglés primero y luego lo traduzco al español. So in Tuscan, during the dry season, how can you use rainwater? How do you store it? How much and for how long? Entonces, durante la temporada seca en Tucson,
Tucson.
¿cómo se usa el agua de lluvias?
So in Tucson, during the dry season, how can you use rainwater? How do you store it and how much and for how long? When summer arrives, our work decreases for sure because a lot of people don't want to install the system because they're thinking that we're not going to have more rainwater. And something happens that why do we harvest water? For gardening, and so we do gardening and landscaping. And we also work in plumbing because there's 5 members of us. Each member has a different skill. I think this is a little bit of a mistake that we did from the start because we started looking for members that had a skill. Why? So that we could get the work faster because we could do many things in a single business. So we never gave the opportunity to have a member without skill. And we learned from this mistake and we realized that we could not go on like this. 2 of our members left. We had 2 vacancies and we included 2 persons from the worker centers that had been labored the whole life. Now they have learned irrigation systems, plumbing. They have learned from many other works that they didn't know about before. So how do? We change from, water and we start working the land. We do gardening. We also have a member that studied landscape and gardening. Landscaping or gardening in deserts, so do that those would not require irrigation systems or water. So we also have those gardens require water for just for a certain period of time until the land is reestablished, because this is something that you get in the garden stores, and these are native plants that you garden. This is a way of surviving. As Flecker says, when you are an employer and you become the owner of a cooperative, this is a transition point and we need to be very careful about it, because, for example, I made the mistake to say, okay, I'm going to leave this because I'm overwhelmed. I don't want to continue because I will work for 8 hours under the sun from sunset to sunrise or sunrise to sunset. And I will get to my house and I was completely tan. And my wife would say, I don't want you to do this anymore. Let's go back to Mexico. And I would say, no, we're going to do what we need to do, but I'm not going to quit. The cooperative has been incorporated. We're ready. How can I leave? So this is something that was quite difficult for me when summer arrived. But once we started working in gardening, we have many customers. Going back at that transition point, what you have to do is to, leverage from the work that you have to do the other work. And this is something that the five member does. We never left their jobs because in this way, cooperatives have this. They're very flexible for work and they're flexible for responsibilities. I was, for example, in charge of accounting. The other one was in charge of customers. The other one was in charge of information of the database. And thankfully, we've had a lot of work, even if it doesn't rain. I think there was a season when it didn't rain for a year here. And we said, okay, what we're going to do. But then the next year, rain was just, flowing. Now the state, this city, and on behalf of the mayor, she says, she implemented some programs for cooperatives such as us, but there are not many. I think we're the only cooperative, and the others are nonprofit organizations that work differently. They do the same as us, or we do the same as them because they were first, and they hire us. And so, what do we do before the rain arrives? In the sidewalk, they will measure the.
Oh,
Sí. Ah,
se muteó su micrófono, Tony.
You muted your microphone, Antonio.
algo apretó por ahí.
Sí. Ahí estaba, que estaba muy emocionado hablando.
You were so excited talking.
Todavía no lo podemos escuchar.
We cannot listen to you, hear you
Todavía está en silencio.
still. You're still unmute.
Ahí donde está un microfonito a la mano izquierda abajo.
You have a microphone icon on the toolbar
A ver.
underneath.
Perdió el botón.
Did
¿Será que
you?
no, a ver, Antonio, haz unmute. ¿No? Ahí le puse como un mensaje para que. Ahí.
Gracias.
Ahora
Thank
sí.
you so much. So what did you do? They have their engineers and they measure the slope of the sidewalks, and we had some holes there. And in that part where there's only soil, and we do some basins, and then we fill them with a soil, and then the underneath part has a hole, we could say. And when the rain enters there, it will remain there. So, and so by this, we avoid traffic due to floodings and light stops in corners and everywhere where drainages are. And so this allow us to work, but because we were not contractors, she did this as a pilot project. And so they were waiting for our permits to give us more work, and they're going to give us more work 9 months a year. And the other, what's correntía? This means this in the way that is, this is a stream. This is a stream that floods the streets, that the roads, the streets. And so we avoid this mainstream by doing these holes in the sidewalks so that the water is, draining and is remaining in the sides of the street.
Como que me
Thank you,
veía ahí viendo.
Tony.
En un momento ya estaba como viendo los canales, todo. ¿Tenemos otra pregunta, Mayra?
We have another question.
Una de
Yes.
Celsa, y esta,
Celsa
no sé si quiere responder esta
asks,
pregunta.
I don't know who
Traducción.
wants to answer
¿Cómo
this.
enfrentas sus retos
How
como
do
miembros
you
dueños y cómo se
face your
motivan?
challenges as workers owners and how do you motivate yourselves?
¿Quién quiere responder esa pregunta?
Yo puedo ir primero, si está bien, Tony.
I can
En
go
nuestro caso,
first. In our
la ventaja
case,
de tener una red de
the
cooperativas
advantage
donde
of
quiera
having a
que
network
City
of
es que cuando tenemos
cooperatives and the
problemas
incubator Cop
de
City is that
comunicación
whenever we have
en
problems
directiva o cosas así,
regarding
yo no soy
training
un
or any
técnico,
other,
yo no soy
I'm
administrador.
not a technician. I'm
Y
not
la
a
cooperativa
teacher.
tenemos
And
reuniones semanales.
the cooperative, we have weekly meetings.
Y hay problemas en la cooperativa, ellos mandan una
And if
persona que
there's
se
a
dedica a
problem
eso,
in the cooperative, they will
como
send
comunicación sin
someone, and
violencia,
a specialist,
como
for
consultoría de
instance,
liderazgo,
communication without violence,
financiera,
financial
todo ese tipo de cosas
education,
y
all these type
habilidades
of
soft, ¿no?
things,
Que se necesitan para que un
and
negocio
soft
funcione.
skills
Nos
that
enfocamos en la
are
parte
required for the
de
business.
mantener
We
los recursos
focus
del negocio
on
y todo eso y viene la
maintaining
parte,
the
la
business,
incubadora,
and then this
a presentar ese
NGO,
tipo
the incubator,
cuando
uh,
tenemos problemas, tenemos un
supplements
proyecto
this
obviamente
type of needs.
conversamos, es bien abierto, pero cuando no se llega a una
When
solución,
there is an issue, we talk
lo
about
ponemos en
it.
las
It's
reuniones
an open
semanales de
process.
mejoramiento, ¿no? Y
We
estamos
put it as
para
an
eso.
item in the agenda of the weekly meeting,
¿Cómo
and we, help each
es su
other.
proceso de resolución de conflicto
So it
interno?
has
Pero si no pueden
an
resolverlo,
internal
entonces acuerdan
process for
cómo lo van
solution.
a
If you cannot
solucionar.
resolve it,
Sí,
then you
más que nada
talk
la
to incubator.
incubadora
Well,
ofrece entrenamiento.
most of
No,
us, the incubator,
comunicación sin
Cup City,
violencia, ese tipo de cosas. A veces
provides
hemos usado a
training,
veces como mediación.
communication without violence. We have used them as mediators twice, but this is a rare occasion. Antony,
Ujú.
this is a very good question. This is where we use principle 7, the relationship, the six, cooperation among cooperatives. We have a meeting every 20 days with many organizations, not necessarily cooperatives, but nonprofit organizations that work in the same way as us. And that's how we organize ourselves. So many times materials increase their cost, and we cannot, give such high costs to people who want to install their systems. And so we all gather, we collect the money, and we do one single procurement. So when you purchase in high volume, then the prices are lower. This is one of the ways to motivate us to go on, because there was a time when we didn't find a way how to charge so much to people, because people who wanted the work was our people, but they didn't have a lot of money, because this is a low income area. That's why we live here. And so we couldn't install the systems, and we were, this was one of the motivations we have, because there's always has to be this relationship. If we join efforts, I think we can do more than independently. When we are together, when we join efforts, there are more alternatives, there are more ideas, there is for everything, for good practices. In English, I don't know. When when everyone, when we have a meeting or a party and everyone brings something, the potluck. I'm not good for English, I'm sorry, but so we do this a lot. And every time we do it, we always have something from it or something left from it. We did a group, and every time we do this, we record everything in a book of meetings to record the meetings, new ideas for business or what we're going to do, next tips. And that's how we, motivate each other.
Muchas gracias, Tony. Estamos poniendo ya
Thank you,
la
Tony.
ahí en el chat
We please note that the chat, there's a link to evaluate this talk. And Flecker was saying that there's a cooperative called Technicians for Sustainability. This is a cooperative that installs solar panels in Tucson. So I hope you can reach out to them. Yes, we know them. They are part of the network with us, but they are from Nevada. And so the owners return, but the cooperative remain here, and this is a cooperative. It is not the same of us, but they have different levels. They have founders and worker owners. We visited their installations, their facilities. It was really nice.
Eso es bueno que se vayan conectando. Si también yo tengo
This
una
is good to add to your connections.
con una organización.
We also have another cooperative that is, joined. It's called Hasafi Homeworks, and they are incubating a cleaning cooperative.
Mira, así vamos creciendo, ¿no?
This is how we grow.
No sé si alguien más, no sé, creo que no veo nada más en el chat.
Someone else? I don't see anything else in the chat.
A lo mejor tenemos.
No, pero
However,
todavía hay unos minutitos. Si es que
there are
alguien
some
tiene
minutes
curiosidad de
left.
algo, yo me quedé con la
As
curiosidad
I
de
have a
saber
question still to know.
los tanques que colectan
The
agua,
cistern,
son
these
distribuidos
tanks
por
that
casa.
collect
Y si es en
harvest
casa,
or that harvest rainwater, are
preguntaba
this
también, ¿no?
one per house?
¿Cuánto se puede contener? ¿O esto es
How much water can you
particular del
store?
tanque? ¿Cómo se contiene?
This complete system requires you need to get a plastic water tank. This plastic has been processed by a company here called Rain System, and they manufacture it in a way that does not produce algae. So the tanks start off 500 gallons per tank. You place the tank according to the capacity of the ceiling. We make the measurements, take the measurements, and we know what the water tank capacity should be. The meteorological system provides the information when there's rain, when there's a muson, we know how much water is going to be per season, 1 feet or so. And so that's how we know the type of tank that we know for a certain household. Our ceilings are different. So we need to take the measurements, saying they have the equation, and we connect the gutters. The water gets down through a drain and then goes through a PVC pipeline, and then it goes up and connects to the tank. So it goes down the girder to the pipeline underneath and then goes up to the tank. It is a system that is so incredible when it was installed at home, because we piloted at home so that we could, that we knew how it operates, and I was so impressed. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to change from this. It was really good. It doesn't require any energy, just maintenance. This is the only thing that requires. Thank you for that explanation. I have a question for Flecker.
Van a tener que ponerse de acuerdo, pero por último a lo mejor la puedes hacer ahí en el chat
So maybe Flecker is also 3 hours difference from here. I want to really thank him for being here. I know that it's 10:30 there. It is a pleasure. It was well worth it. Thank you both for participating in this panel forum. And if you witnessed that in the chat, there were a lot of comments, there were a lot of questions. So Kayla, I will give you the floor to close the session. We are so excited and so thankful for this opportunity. Thank you to all participants. It was my pleasure. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If everyone could please take a few minutes to fill out this small survey about our last community talk with Colmenar. And thank you so much to our panelists. Muchas gracias. Y para Colmenar, thank you so much for co-hosting. Thank you to everyone who has joined us in these panels. A reminder that if you missed any, you can visit Ventures YouTube channel and you can see the ones that we've had in the past. We hope that you'll stay in touch with us and we will let you know when we have more community talks planned. We're hoping to have some in person soon and definitely a few more over Zoom. If you do have any questions or you're interested in learning more and staying in touch, you can reach us at our email address, which we'll share in the chat, or you can call our office number. And I hope everybody has a wonderful night. Thank you so much. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches a todos.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Que estén bien.
Gracias, se cuidan.